You are in direct violation of the bylaws. I am seizing these tools immediately, and you will cease all work on this dock.
The cold lake air hit me first, then the flashing orange lights on the HOA golf cart parked at my dock, and finally the sound of my own drill clattering into a plastic tub as a stranger grabbed it. I rushed down in my hoodie and socks, breath clouding over the dark water. Two HOA maintenance guys in yellow vests were hauling my dock tools off the planks like they were stealing treasure. Behind them stood Karen, our HOA president, arms crossed, clipboard pressed to her chest, smelling like burnt coffee and cheap perfume. She pointed at me without even saying good morning and snapped that my tools were now in HOA custody for safety violations. I just stood there, listening to the scrape of metal on metal and the distant hum of a boat engine in the fog, thinking, what just happened? By the time the sun burned through the clouds, every neighbor walking their dog had seen the empty space where my toolbox usually sat. Karen strutted around like she had just saved the neighborhood from a bomb. I checked my phone and saw the email from 6:12 a.m. official notice, temporary seizure of equipment. The subject line made my blood boil. HOA seized my dock tools for 6 days. Then I filed the Plat map. That was the moment this turned from annoyance into a full-on battle. I had started refurbishing my family's old dock, one board at a time, and now the HOA was acting like I was running a shipyard that I tried to be calm. I really did. Later that day, around 9:00 p.m., I walked up to the clubhouse. The hallway smelled like bleach and stale cookies from some earlier party. Karen sat behind a folding table like a mini judge, the board flanking her. I asked why my tools were taken when my project had already been approved in writing. She flipped a stack of papers and said, without looking at me, that new safety guidance allowed them to hold anything left on the dock longer than 30 minutes. I said, show me that rule. She replied, it'll be in the next revision. The room went quiet. The board members looked anywhere but at me. One neighbor who always chats about fishing suddenly acted like he didn't know my name. They told me I could file an appeal at the next monthly meeting. My tools were evidence until then. Walking home in the dark, I felt my hands shaking, partly from the cold, partly from rage. That was my line in the sand. You don't grab a working person's tools and treat them like toys. I promised myself right there I would use only proper channels, but I would use every single one. I started with what I already had. I lined up photos, emails, and call logs in a binder. I printed the original dock approval from March 14th, 2023. At exactly 3:17 p.m., I pulled my security camera footage showing the golf cart crew taking my stuff at 6:03 a.m. And then I dug deeper. At my kitchen table, with the smell of reheated coffee filling the room, I opened the county website and started looking at public records. Property lines, easements, old plats with smudged ink and crooked scans. That's when I saw something that made my jaw drop. The official Plat map from years ago showed a thin strip of land, about 8 feet wide, labeled private easement for dock access. And it was on my deed, not the HOA's. Even better, the shiny new community dock extension that Karen had bragged about at the last barbecue? It poked right across that easement like a finger pointing at a lie. I printed everything. At the county clerk's office, the file landed with 63 pages. The clerk raised an eyebrow and stapled a case number sticker on top. I added a timeline to my binder. Timeline item 1, April 5th at 4:27 a.m. false trespass call. Because Karen had called the cops on me once before for suspicious activity when I was sanding boards in my own driveway. The officer that night had apologized to me, but he also said one simple thing that stuck in my head. Patterns of false reports can be prosecuted. The payoff came at the next HOA meeting, held on a warm night that made the whole room smell like cut grass and sweat. People packed into the clubhouse. Some stood along the back wall, phones already out. Karen opened with a speech about safety, tools, and protecting our shared shoreline. She tried to move on to budget, but I raised my hand and said I had an appeal. When she sighed and told me to be quick, I walked up front with my binder and a rolled-up poster tube. Beside me stood a quiet man in a blue shirt, the city zoning inspector I'd requested, plus a rep from the Lake Authority. I unrolled the enlarged Plat map onto the table so everyone could see the lines and labels. The zoning guy pointed with his pen. This easement, he said, is on his lot, not the association's. And this new extension? He tapped the community dock. That's an unapproved structure on private access. You could hear the gasp. Neighbors leaned forward. People in the back lifted their phones higher to film. Karen's face went from pink to gray. She mumbled something about an old survey, but the inspector already had a folder in his hand. He read off dates, right there in front of everyone. The dock extension order Karen pushed through without a vote. The $250 special assessment, she charged each of us to pay for it. The 3 formal complaints filed against me that didn't match the police records. Then he turned to me and said my tools were taken under a rule that did not exist in any filed governing document. The room broke into low laughter. One guy whispered loud enough for everyone to hear, so she stole his stuff to protect her illegally placed dock. Videos were already hitting group chats. The authority flip happened fast. The inspector issued a stop-use notice on the HOA's precious dock extension. The lake rep added that fines for encroaching on a recorded easement could be steep and ongoing. The board members suddenly found their voices and started asking Karen why they hadn't seen any of this paperwork. The next day, an email went out at 8:14 a.m. saying my tools would be returned immediately and all complaints against me were being reconsidered. By then, it was too late. A clip from the meeting had hit the local neighborhood Facebook group and then a bigger page. People commented things like "Doc Karen gets docked." At the police station, I calmly handed over my binder with the timeline and reports. They took it seriously. They'd seen the videos too. In the aftermath, things got quiet in the best way. The HOA had to hire a surveyor and then spend real money to pull back their dock extension to the legal line. Karen lost her position as president within 2 weeks after a special vote. She kept her house, but she lost the microphone. I got a written apology from the board for the 6 days my tools were held and the 3 bogus complaints in my file. More important, I got my mornings back. Now, when I walk down to the lake, the air still smells like wet wood and coffee, but it also smells like peace. My dock sits solid on my easement, and sometimes my older neighbor brings over pancakes and we sit at the end, feet dangling over the water, laughing softly about the dock war. I didn't yell. I didn't smash anything. I just filed the Plat map and let the lines on paper do the talking. Please follow for more HOA showdowns like this. Do you think she got what she deserves? Comment below.